He was tossed in jail, then solitary confinement for 2 years. Slevin says he was neglected so badly that his toenails grew around his feet and he was not allowed to even take a shower. So to pick up this
UCSD student left in a DEA holding cell for 5 days, admittedly by accident.
Because for the last 37 years, he's languished in jail, a forgotten man. In 1976, he was accused of murdering his mother.
Solitary confinement is often debated about whether or not it's, too cruel of a punishment. Cruel or not, it's often used as a form of punishment in prison where inmates are isolated from other human contact. They're isolated for 22 to 24 hours a day, with sentencing ranging from days to even decades. In a lot of these cases, inmates become a high risk of harming themselves and will even go as far as killing themselves in order to escape the punishment. Some of these inmates are able to outlive their sentence, but there are situations where these inmates are just forgotten about. So let's get right into this list. This is the top 10 convicts who are forgotten about in solitary confinement, and here today we actually have some help for this video. Alright, so we have Kelly from the Top 5 Scary Videos channel. You guys can check that out right over here. It's everything scary.
Yeah, we do a bunch of really scary lists, all top 5s. Stuff like scary human experiments to the types of cases that Ed and Lorraine Warren investigated during their time alive. It's like pretty crazy stuff.
So you guys told us on here you love scary, so this is a channel that's only scary. So make sure you guys check it out. We'll also put a link to it in the description below.
Yeah, come hang out with us. Alright, let's start off this list. In at number 10, Adam Capay. Adam was imprisoned in an Ontario prison in Canada and held in solitary for over 4 years, completely isolated, without a trial. The now 25-year-old First Nations man was kept in isolation in a windowless, plexiglass-lined cell at the Thunder Bay jail with 24-hour-a-day artificial light. In 2012, he was charged for the murder of another inmate, a crime he has yet to receive a trial for, leading many activists to cause a stir, demanding action and shining light on the issue within Ontario's correction systems. After 1,500 days in solitary, Adam reportedly began suffering from memory loss and had difficulty speaking. There has been a demand for the Ontario government to cap solitary confinement to a max of 15 days, and currently a petition is circulating online demanding for Adam's release from isolation.
Number 9.
Slevin says after being arrested for a DWI in Doñana County in 2005, he was put in solitary confinement for 2 years, basically forgotten about.
Marissa Torres joins us live from the newsroom with details.
So that was Slevin, who was actually rewarded $15.5 million after he was put into solitary confinement at the Donna Ana County Jail in New Mexico. Slevin was 59 years old when he spent up to 24 hours a day in a tiny dark cell. He was often denied his 1 hour out of cell time. This cruel punishment caused him to have delirium. His mental state was severely compromised. He wasn't properly taken care of. He wasn't even allowed to see a dentist, so he had a problem with one of his teeth and he pulled it out himself. The worst part of this whole case was Slevin was put into solitary confinement because of his depression issues. It makes no sense. He will just become way more depressed. He is being set up for failure right from the start. Slevin was put into prison for allegedly stealing a vehicle after being drunk, but he claims that his friend was the one that let him borrow the vehicle. He has never been seen by a judge for his sentencing. He was just left in prison and just simply forgotten about.
A few days of evaluation at a behavioral center and 7 days of rec. He just sat in that cell for 22 months.
Kalief Browner was arrested at 16, never convicted of a crime, never had a trial, but spent more than 3 years in one of the most violent jails in the country.
The jail Kalief Browner stayed at was at Rikers Island. We have often talked about this prison on this channel many times. It's notorious for being a horrible prison for its violence and mistreating its inmates. At the age of just 16 years old, Browner was accused of theft of a backpack, and I kid you not, he went to prison because of this, because he stole a backpack. It's crazy, I know. Well, inside of the backpack was $700, a camera, a credit card, and an iPod Touch. While waiting trial, Browner was in prison for 3 years with significant time in solitary confinement. It took 3 years to finally have a court case, and when the trial occurred, the prosecutor's case was lacking in evidence, and the main witness in this case couldn't be located, so the case was dropped. So why the heck did this teenager spend 3 years in prison? This story gets really sad because just years after being released, Mr. Browder couldn't adapt to the real world, so he took his own life by hanging. Prison life was very hard for Browder. Let me show you guys a clip of an officer attacking him for no apparent reason inside of the prison. Kalief will be seen in the orange prison jumpsuit, and he is handcuffed and he's unable to harm anyone. Watch.
The guard, who in seconds is seen slamming him into a wall and then to the ground.
And I cry myself to sleep because it's like, I want to go home, and it's like they're not letting me go home.
To go home, Kalief's mother.
Alright, moving on to number 7, we've got Dean Westwood. Now Dean's case is a really sad one. For starters, when first arriving at the Coffee Creek Correctional Facility in Oregon, prison employees didn't know how to properly handle an inmate with his disability. Dean is paralyzed from the waist down, and he was handled really roughly. He wasn't provided with his anti-seizure medication, and he was placed in an isolated medical cell for 7 days. His wheelchair was taken away from him and he was left flat on his back in the cell, and was not given any assistance to help move around. He was forced into tight-fitting clothing, causing irritation on his body below his waist, and because he didn't have his medication, he experienced severe convulsions. According to the ACLU, despite the Americans with Disabilities Act laws, discrimination against people with disabilities persists in prisons and jails nationwide. Stories like Dean's are more common across the US than you'd think, and cases of neglect have caused major physical and mental damage to prisoners nationwide. Moving on to number 6, Thomas Silverstein. Silverstein has been incarcerated since 1977 for 4 separate murders. The alleged former leader of the Aryan Brotherhood prison gang, he's been in isolation since 1983 after killing a corrections officer at the Marion Penitentiary in Illinois, and orchestrating the death of another corrections officer via one of his gang members. He was briefly released during the 1987 Atlanta prison riots by Cuban detainees. Officials were worried he would orchestrate the murders of more correctional officers, because it's like kind of his thing. But luckily that didn't happen. The cell he's been confined to is a specially designed cell called Range 13 at the ADX Florence Federal Prison in Colorado, and he's currently the longest held prisoner in solitary confinement within the Bureau of Prisons. He's also considered to be the most dangerous prisoner in the US federal prison system, and literally has no human contact, something that Silverstein still argues to this day is a form of torture.
Number 5.
I was 22. I am 38 now.
That is Damon Thibodeau, who spent the past 15 years on death row. Because he was a death row inmate, it was an automatic solitary confinement for him. I don't even think I can last 1 week in solitary confinement. This guy was innocent of his crime and had to spend 15 years forgotten about in confinement. When Damon was just 22 years old, he was sentenced to death for sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl, and this was back in 1997. Damon always maintained his innocence, but the justice system never believed him. In an interview, when asked about how he passed the time in solitary confinement, this is what he said, and I quote, "I didn't pass the days passed me." Damon had to sleep on the floor, and it was hot all the time. He felt defeated and his freedom was gone. Damon also said that after a while, it gets to be one long day. Every day you wake up and hope you have the mental strength to survive another day. Oftentimes he thought of suicide, but he was somehow able to hang on till he was proven to be innocent and finally was released from prison.
Moving on to number 4, Arthur Johnson. Arthur Johnson spent 37 years in solitary confinement. That's over half of his life in various prisons across the state of Pennsylvania. He was initially confined to solitary after he made a series of attempts to escape prison in the 70s and the 80s. Now Johnson has been awarded a $325,000 settlement after launching a lawsuit, stating that his time in isolation in a tiny cell was cruel and unusual punishment, violating his right to due process. Now those 37 years were spent in a cell for at least 23 hours a day, with Johnson only being able to go outside in a metal cage for an hour each weekday, if the weather permitted. That's intense. He was not allowed any visits and had not been able to make any physical contact with any prisoners since 1979. Johnson is still in prison, but his lawyers are attempting to appeal his life sentence under the argument that he was a little over 18 years old when first indicted, and that he has a documented intellectual disability.
Number 3, we have this guy right here who I feel so bad for. This is Juan Navarro, and I actually can't give you an age or how long exactly he's been in prison for, but we have some guesses. Navarro's age is somewhere between 76 and 78 years old, and he has probably been in prison for almost 40 years. The reason why we don't have a ton of information about this guy is because he suffers from dementia and schizophrenia. He might have been in prison way back since 1976, and he was suspected for killing his mother, but there hasn't been any trial dates or anything. Navarro was simply just forgotten about in the justice system.
Authorities weren't even able to find documents pertaining to his trial and can't say whether he was ever convicted of anything. Those documents appear to have been destroyed by fire during a riot in a prison where he was once held, and no one has been able to find copies anywhere else.
Alright, moving on to number 2, Albert Woodfox. Woodfox is the US's longest standing solitary confinement prisoner, who after over 4 decades was finally set free in Louisiana. 43 years. That's absolutely insane. So his story is that he was put into a 6x9 cell after he was put into jail for a murder that he allegedly committed back in 1972. Woodfox has always proclaimed his innocence, might I add. He was held in a cell for 23 hours of the day with only a single hour each day to go out and exercise in the yard, which was a small fenced-off area of concrete, all while being shackled and pretty much entirely alone while there. He was released in 2016 at the age of 69. Now that he's out, he's committed his time to campaigning against the use of solitary confinement on prisoners, saying, I quote, "I can now direct all of my efforts to ending the barbarous use of solitary confinement, and will continue my work on that issue here in the free world." Now, Woodfox is also known for being one of the Angola Three prisoners who were originally held in Louisiana's Angola prison, who, because of their affiliation with the Black Panthers, believed they were framed for the murder of a prison guard a year after Woodfox had been imprisoned there. They collectively have spent 113 years in solitary.
So Albert Woodfox has lived a crazy life, and we've actually done the prison life of Albert Woodfox, a detailed video, a different type of video on this channel about his life. If you guys want to check that out, you guys can click right over here. But for now, we are at number 1. We have 23-year-old Daniel Chun, who was at a 420 party with his friends when the police crashed the party and raided the event. Daniel Chun was arrested along with the aid of his friends. A DEA agent released a statement saying that they seized 18,000 ecstasy pills, marijuana, hallucinogenic mushrooms, a Russian rifle, 2 handguns, and thousands of rounds of ammunition. Is this real life right now? What kind of party is this? Well, while in jail, Daniel was actually forgotten about for 5 days. There was no water, there was no food. Daniel Chun was actually forced to drink his own pee and fight for survival. You would think that this can only be a movie.
And found me. At first I was just relieved to be alive 100%, but you know, I started realizing what happened to me.
Alright, I feel real bad for the last guy who had to literally drink his own pee for just fighting to just stay alive. But this is the end of the video. Thank you so much, Kelly, for helping out.
Thank you for having me. And if you guys want to see more terrifying things, whether it's about prison or human experiments or what have you, just come on over to Top 5 Scary Videos and, you know, get spooked out with us. We'd love to have you guys.
That's it for us. We'll see you guys all in the next most amazing Top 10 video.
See ya.